Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to come once again to learn about an odd little obscure piece of history that I don't have time to cover in class. And today we're going to do a bit of Oklahoma history. And I'm outside so you can hear my lovely chickens talking to me all around. So sorry for that. I thought I'd enjoy the beautiful day outside. So we're going to learn about a bit of Oklahoma history today and about a bit about local Oklahoma history. And we are going to talk today about Al Jennings, who is possibly the worst outlaw ever. And he is from Oklahoma. Okay, Al Jennings was born in Virginia in 1863, and then he and his family moved to Oklahoma and settled in El Reno. And he attended law school and passed the bar and started off life as an attorney, not as a criminal. And he served as the prosecuting attorney actually in Canadian County, so that's like the DA, from 1892 to 1894. And then when he got finished with that little stint, he moved to Woodward and opened up a practice with his brothers. But being a product of their time, they were raised on all these fantastical stories of the Wild West and the outlaws. In 1895, his brothers were involved in a shootout with another attorney, and it turned out that attorney was none other than Temple Houston, who was the son of the hero of the Alamo, Sam Houston. And Temple ended up killing one of Al's brothers and wounded the other, and went on to stand trial for the murder of one of Al's brothers, but was acquitted in court and found not guilty. And so Jennings quit life as a lawyer and then turned to life as a cowboy. And then he decided to turn to a life of crime. And his first job as an outlaw was to obtain fake U.S. Marshal badges and collect tolls from all the cattle drives that were coming across Indian and Oklahoma territory. And then he formed the Jennings Gang with a former member of the Doolin Gang and two other brothers. And their first attempt at a train robbery didn't go so well. They stopped a train at Edmond, and they got onto the baggage car, which is where the safe would have been held. They got to the safe. They tried to open the safe, and they couldn't open the safe. Their second attempt at a train robbery didn't go well either. Frank got out, and he stood on the tracks, in the middle of the tracks. It was a nighttime thing, but instead of it being like, kind of not a night where you could see him really well, no, it was a really bright moonlit night where you could see exactly who he was. And he's waving a flag, trying to get the train to stop. And the engineer takes a look at it, and he's like, I know what this is all about. And put his hand on the throttle and turned it up even faster. And the train is barreling down the tracks at Al Jennings. And finally, at the last minute, he has to jump aside and get out of the way of the train. So that's the second attempt at a train robbery. Again, not so good. Third attempt at a train robbery, we have kind of the same outcome. It was at Minko. They boarded the train. They couldn't get open the safe, but Jennings had been waiting for an opportunity like this. He had read all the stories. He knew what to do. He procured a stick of dynamite, and he put in the fuse and ran. How much dynamite did you use? His brother asked him. Al Jennings replies, for a big safe like this, you got to use a lot of dynamite. And the safe and the car blew up. And what he had done was he had just simply put the dynamite stick on top of the safe. So the safe didn't blow up at all. All it blew up was the baggage car that it was in. And bits of wood and iron went everywhere, but no safe open. So they went on to the train itself and robbed the passengers and got away with a little bit of money, some new boots from some surveyor, a bunch of bananas, and a jug of whiskey. So we're not doing so good. So they decided to try their hand at robbing stores. And so what they did was they went to Cushing and robbed a store and got a grand total of $15. And so the gang ended up going broke. I'm sorry, the gang ended up breaking up in 1897. And they'd done enough that it wasn't that the U.S. Marshals were after them hot and heavy. They were just kind of more annoying than anything. Eventually, Al Jennings is going to be captured by marshals in 1897. And at his trial, his attorney had worked out a deal where he was just going to get 5 years in prison. But during the trial, Al Jennings, when he was questioned about whether he intended to shoot a person to kill them, instead of being quiet on the stand like his attorney had asked him to, he got up on the stand and said, yep, he sure did mean to shoot to kill that person. So the 5-year deal that his attorney had worked out turned out to be life in prison. While in prison, he met a guy who would later go on to become the writer O. Henry, who is responsible for such stories as The Gift of the Magi and things like that. And Al Jennings told him all these stories about his life of crime in the territory. And that's O. Henry you see on your screen. And how he was such a big, bad outlaw in Oklahoma territory and Indian territory. In reality, the only person Al Jennings ever shot was his neighbor that he shot accidentally while Al Jennings was cleaning his gun. And he shot at another guy once, but missed the guy and hit his prize rooster instead. But O. Henry didn't know that. And O. Henry took Al Jennings' exploits and wrote such stories as Holding Up a Train and his story, The Cisco Kid, which became the basis for a television serial and movies in the early part of the 20th century. Jennings is eventually going to be freed from prison because his lawyer and his brothers worked it down, and eventually receives only has to serve 5 years, and eventually is pardoned by Teddy Roosevelt himself, who knew Al Jennings' dad, who had been a judge back in the territory. So next, Al Jennings decides he's going to run for office, and he runs for several different offices, including Attorney General and Governor of the state of Oklahoma, the new state of Oklahoma. And he didn't hide from his past. You can see from the picture there, he kind of embellished it and relished it, and ended up coming in third for governor behind Robert L. Williams, who did eventually become our governor. Jennings then decides that he's going to go to California, where the burgeoning movie business is taking off, and serve as a technical advisor. He had written his life story down wrote two different books. And the basis of these, he took his knowledge of the outlaw life to California to make all these movies over the outlaw way of life. And in fact, his life story, quote unquote, told by him, which was a complete fabrication, was made into a movie, which made him the number one outlaw for a time. Everybody knew the name Al Jennings. He was the greatest outlaw in his mind. He claimed to be faster than Jesse James. But by the time he's up and running, Jesse James is, kind of died away. So how do we get to Jennings, Oklahoma? Jennings, Oklahoma is built on a 160-acre plot, 40 acres of which were donated to the city by Al Jennings. And there's two different versions of the story: that the town is named after the infamous outlaw Al Jennings. Also, that it's named after the surveyor of the town, who was named Jennings and not related to Al at all. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Just a short, brief history of the worst outlaw ever, who thought he was the best outlaw in his own mind, Al Jennings. I hope everybody is doing fabulous and enjoying the beautiful weather outside. I'm always available via Remind if you guys have questions. over anything. And I'll see you again in a couple of days with another fun little video over interesting stuff about history that we don't get to cover in class. So have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Figure out